What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Who Wants to Brawl YouTube channel. That is not a question, that is a statement. My name is Who, and I'm letting you know I want to brawl. Here, we're all about the Magic format Brawl, specifically in regards to Magic Arena, so we don't have to worry about budget, we only have to worry about wildcards. Okay. Today we're gonna be talking about Zirda the Dawnwaker. It is 3 mana. No. Today we're going to be talking about Zirda the Dawnwaker. It is 1 colorless and 2 red and white hybrid for a 3/3 legendary elemental fox. It has companion, not relevant to the deck if we are going to be running it as a commander. It has activated abilities that aren't mana abilities, cost 2 less to activate for us. This effect can't reduce the mana to below 0. So basically with this deck, we're going to be using our activated abilities now. So basically for this deck, we're going to be using activated abilities to gain an advantage in the game. Red and white does not have a lot of card advantage, so using activated abilities to get extra value is a good way to go for this deck. Red and white doesn't have a lot of card advantage, so using activated abilities to replace that card advantage is a perfect strategy for this deck, and Zirda is the perfect commander for that strategy. Zirda is going to be an interesting commander because no. Zirda is going to be an interesting commander, particularly because the current meta does not have a lot of red and white uh, The current meta does not have a lot of red or white cards with solid activated abilities. So this deck is going to basically feel incomplete. However, we will be revisiting this deck at a later date after Kaldheim and Strixhaven get released, and hopefully we can round out the deck in a little bit better way. But today, we're going to be laying down the base work. Our first strategy for this deck is going to be card selection. As I said, red and white does not have the best card advantage, but it does have some, and we're going to have to use every trick available to us in order to maximize our card draws. So the first card draw card we're going to talk about is Mangara the Diplomat. As a 4-mana 2/4 with lifelink and no activated abilities, it probably wouldn't fit in this deck normally. However, it does allow us to draw a card when an opponent casts 2 or more spells in a turn or attacks us with 2 or more creatures. A card like this can just help swing the game and is just a generically good card to include. Our next card draw card is Oread of Mountain's Blaze, which for 2 mana is a 1/3 that has an activated ability of 3 mana, discard a card, and draw a card. Again, with Zirda, this essentially becomes 1 red, discard a card, draw a card, which helps us cycle away our lands late in the game when we don't need them, or helps us draw out to our lands earlier in the game when we. And the next two are Sanctuary Smasher and Yadaro, Wandering Monster. Each of these cards has cycling. Sanctuary Smasher for 3 and Yadaro for 2 mana. However, those can be reduced down to 1 red mana, essentially making these a cantrip with upside. That when we cycle Sanctuary Smasher, we give a creature we control first strike, and if we cycle Yadaro 4 times in a game, it just comes out onto the battlefield as an 8/8 trampler. And then we have Tome of Legends, which is a 2 mana artifact that for 1 mana, tap it and remove a page counter, we draw a card, and then whenever Zirda enters the battlefield or attacks, we put a page counter on it. Golden Egg and Spare Supplies each are 2 mana artifacts that draw a card when they enter the battlefield. Golden Egg can sacrifice to add 1 mana of any color, and for 2 mana we can sack it and gain 3 life. While Spare Supplies for 2 mana we can sack it and draw a card. Each of those abilities gets reduced down to 1 mana with Zirda. And then we have Maze Mind Tome, which is 2 mana for an artifact that can tap, describe one, and put a counter on it. And then for 2 mana, we can tap it and draw a card and put a counter on it. And then when it has 4 counters on it, it exiles itself and we gain 4 life. Paying 2 to draw a card with this every turn can be a steep price, but paying 1 is a much more manageable and much more doable price to pay. Our next strategy is going to be stronger attacks. In the current metagame, red and white have a lot of activated abilities on creatures that allows the creatures to become stronger, whether by giving them keyword abilities or by pumping their power and toughness. We can use activated abilities to gain an advantage in combat that hopefully we can turn into card advantage. Anointed Chorister, Teeter Peak Ambusher, and Phoenix of Ash each pump themselves in different ways and bring something unique to the table. The Chorister has lifelink and give itself +3/+3. The Teeter Peak Ambusher can give itself +2/+0 along with the Phoenix of Ash, and the Phoenix also brings flying, haste, and escape. With Zirda's reduce ability, these become much more manageable abilities. Then Heliod's Sun Crown can give our creatures lifelink for 1 mana with Zirda out. It also doesn't help that later in the game, if we have enough devotion, which Zirda will give 2 devotion to white, it becomes a large creature. And Seagate Banneret can pump all of our creatures, and reducing this ability from 5 to 3 makes it much more efficient. And then we have Shadow Spear, Maul of the Skyclaves, and Scavenged Blade, which are each equipment that give a different bonus, but the equip cost is reduced with Zirda, making these easier to transfer between one creature and another. Additionally, Maul of the Skyclaves and Scavenged Blade can equip as soon as they enter the battlefield, making them a little bit more efficient. And next up we have some removal. Every Brawl deck must include removal, and Zirda is no different. First up, we have Flame Spell, which deals 4 damage to a creature, and excess damage is dealt to that creature's controller. Then we have Thundering Rebuke, which for 2 mana deals 4 damage to a creature or planeswalker, while Storm's Wrath, for 4 mana, deals 4 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. Then we have Banishing Light and Glass Casket. Each enter the battlefield and exile something. Banishing Light exiles anything, while Glass Casket only exiles a creature with converted mana cost 3 or less. And then if these permanents leave the battlefield, then our opponent gets their permanents back. But the removal that works best with Zirda's abilities are Giant Killer and Shredded Sails. Giant Killer can be cast as an adventure that for 3 mana destroys a creature with power 4 or greater. But as a creature, Giant Killer can tap a creature for 2 mana, and with Zirda, we can reduce that to 1. Then Shredded Sails for 2 mana can destroy an artifact, can deal 4 damage to a flying creature, or can cycle away for 2. Again, with Zirda out, that cycling ability gets reduced down to 1. Our final category is going to be utility pieces. These are pieces that don't necessarily fit in with the strategy of our deck, but still makes our deck run a little bit more smooth to help us get ahead in the game. First up, we have Hushbringer, which for 2 mana is a 1/2 flying lifelink that creatures entering the battlefield do not cause abilities to trigger. This can shut down a lot of Brawl staples, and is a good creature to run in most decks with white. Then we have Arcane Signet, which for 2 mana can tap to add 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity. Just a Brawl staple is in just about every single deck in the format. Then we have Omen of the Forge and Omen of the Sun, which are each enchantments with flash, Omen of the Forge being 2 mana and Omen of the Sun being 3 mana. That each of them for 3 mana can sacrifice to scry 2, and Zirda can reduce this ability down to 1. The Forge can do 2 damage to anything when it enters the battlefield, and Omen of the Sun puts 2 1/1 white soldier creatures tokens onto the battlefield and gains us 2 life. Solemn Simulacrum is a 4 mana built-in 2 for 1 that when it enters the battlefield we can search our library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped, and when it dies draw a card. Fires of Invention absolutely wrecked Standard while it was legal, being primarily used in decks with a lot of cards that have activated abilities, and being able to avoid paying the mana cost of those cards allows us to hold up mana to activate abilities. We're going to borrow that strategy from those decks. Eidolon of Obstruction forces loyalty abilities of planeswalkers our opponents control to cost 1 colorless more to activate. In a format that allows our opponents to start with access to a planeswalker, this can absolutely wreck decks. And then we have Alseid of Life's Bounty, which for 1 mana is a 1/1 lifelink, and for 1 mana we can sack it to give target creature or enchantment protection from a color of our choice until end of turn. We don't get to reduce that ability because it already costs 1, but saving Zirda when the situation calls for it could help us win the game. Brash Taunter is just an absolutely fun card, and in this deck is even easier to use. It is a 5 mana 1/1 with indestructible, and when it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to target opponent. And for 3 mana, we can fight a creature, but Zirda can reduce that down to 1. And our final utility piece is Lithoform Engine, a card that is essentially made to work with Zirda. Normally it costs 2 mana to copy an activated or triggered ability, and 3 mana to copy an instant or sorcery, but Zirda can reduce that down to 1 mana. And reducing the cost of copying a creature spell from 4 to 2 makes it far more likely that we will actually be able to pull that off. And finally, we have lands. First up, we have Temple of Triumph, which enters the battlefield tapped and taps for a red or white. And when it enters the battlefield, we scry 1. Then we have Command Tower, which taps for 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity, and Windscarred Crag, which enters the battlefield tapped, enters the battlefield and gains 1 life, and taps for a red or a white. Then we have Castle Embereth, which as long as we control a mountain, does not enter the battlefield tapped, taps for a red, and can pump our creatures +1/+0 for 3 mana and tapping it. Keep in mind that gets reduced by 1 with Zirda on the battlefield. And then we have Castle Ardenvale, which doesn't enter the battlefield tapped if we have a plains, taps to add 1 white to our mana pool, and for 4 mana tapping it, again, reduced down to 2 with Zirda, we can create a 1/1 creature token. And then we have Bonder's Enclave, which taps for a colorless, and for 3 mana and tapping it, we can draw a card if we have a creature with power 4 or greater. Again, you already know by now with Zirda that gets reduced by 2. And then we have Evolving Wild and Fabled Passage as fetch lands to get the land we need when we need it. And finally, Labyrinth of Skovos can remove a creature from combat whenever we need it to. And then we're going to top it off with 7 plains and 8 mountains. And that's this week's video. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Share it with a friend to help the channel grow. Hit that bell icon to get notifications about new videos so you don't miss anything. I also want to give a shout out to my buddy Rob Slota for making the Who Wants to Brawl logo. He's a tattoo artist, and you can check out his work on Instagram using the link below. You can also email me at whowantstobrawl@gmail.com for any deck tech ideas. You can follow me on Twitter at whowantstobrawl. Also, check me out on Twitch. I stream last week's deck tech at 11 on Sundays. I also stream random magic things on Mondays at 8 o'clock. And I try to get another stream in randomly throughout the week, sometimes magic, sometimes not. Be sure to check out Twitter for when I pop up. But for now, this is Who, and I'm letting you know I'm done brawling for now. We'll see you later.